Welcome to our presentation.
Hi, I'm Xinyu.
I'm Zhang.
Hello everyone, I'm Zhang. Today we are going to critically analyze the EIA best practice on determining impact significance on vegetation complex in the Perth-Darwin National Highway project.
First, I'm going to talk about what is the best practice. Determining significance is often influenced by the subjective judgment. Many literature shows that a clear framework and a suitable threshold could reduce subjectivity and increase transparency of determination. The significance spectrum from Alex and Rose will combine a clear framework with the threshold in determining significance. Therefore, best practice on significance determination may be using significance spectrum. So, I will introduce how to use it. First, we need to decide the place of the significance threshold on the spectrum, which is shown as the blue line, and then we will weight the evidence to determine the predict adverse impact, shown as the yellow circle, locating at left or right side of the threshold, and then when the impact located at the unacceptable side, we need to consider whether mitigation measure could make the impact change to the acceptable side.
Then I will show you if the significance spectrum was used in this project.
This project plans to construct a new corridor for Perth-Darwin National Highway. However, some vegetation would be cleared to construct it. Therefore, I'm going to talk about how the impact significance on vegetation complex was determined in this project. Let's start. In stage 1 and 2, significance spectrum was used. The threshold was set according to the EPA, which was particular vegetation complex existing 10% of its pre-European extent remaining after vegetation clearing. And if the particular vegetation complex is less than 10% after clearing, the impact would be determined as unacceptable. Then the data shows that the corridor would intersect some vegetation which remained less than 10%. If this vegetation would be cleared, the remaining must be smaller than 10%. Therefore, the impact on this vegetation fell at unacceptable side and triggered formal assessment of this project. Then, let's move on to the stage 3. In stage 3, surveys told us that total 5 vegetation complexes shown in this figure would be impacted by the vegetation clearing. To determine the impact significance on these 5 complexes in stage 3, the significance spectrum was also used and the threshold was also set as 10% by EPA. In PER document, the circle here shows the 5 vegetation complexes would be all above threshold after clearing, so the impacts on them were acceptable. However, in response to submission document, the overstatement on the remaining extent of these 5 vegetation complexes in PER document was found and revised. In this document, the circle here shows that all 5 vegetation complexes after clearing had more than 10% of their pre-European extent remaining. Therefore, these values all fell at acceptable side. Thus, the impact on them was still determined as insignificant.
Then let me analyze the remaining stages in EIA. In stage 4, the same threshold was used to determine the significance. In this figure, we can see that this 5 vegetation complex would be cleared and all of their remaining extent in this pink circle were less than 10% and fell at the accessible side. So EPA determined that the impacts on them would not be significant. In stage 5, to make sure the real impacts on vegetation complex were not larger than prediction, some management measures were proposed. For example, the impacts of introduction or spread of weed would be mitigated to decrease the possible indirect impacts on vegetation complex. In conclusion, all stages clearly set a threshold and with the evidence to determine the impact significance. Therefore, the significance spectrum was used to successfully in this project to determine the impact significance on vegetation complex. This is our reference. Thank you for listening.